A rare mid-September bye week gives the Nittany Lions a chance to re-examine some defensive lapses in their home opener.
That created some challenges for us and allowed us some opportunities to get those things cleaned up in the second half.
He's doing good work even when there's no game to play. The national honor senior center Nick Dawkins receives for his community service. And the more Bradleys, the better. Tom's brother Jim is the Steelers' team orthopedic surgeon. He discusses the impact he's had on the NFL and his special relationship with Dan Rooney.
He said, Doc, if anybody ever interferes with you taking care of my players, I want to know his name.
We got your back as Penn State goes back to work. It's time for Nittany Game Week.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Nittany Game Week. I'm Todd Sadowski alongside former Nittany Lions coaches Jake Paterno and Tom Bradley. Rare to have a bye week so early in the season. So after 2 games, what kinds of things can you accomplish with a Saturday off in mid-September?
Well, you know, after the first 2 games, you can tool it on some things and tighten up some things, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But certainly it's not that common. And to have 2 open weeks in your 12-game schedule, that's even more uncommon.
See, I think it's a great time to work on fundamentals, especially defensively. You work on your tackling, getting off blocks, doing basic fundamentals, because that's what's going to make you better coming down the stretch.
Yeah, so the team has this bye week, and after closer examination, communication on defense is addressed and should be more clear between teammates moving forward. The offense focuses on everyone being on the same page to execute the running game, and what a slight drop in the polls could affect later in the year for the Nittany Lions in our opening drive. So we're going to take a look at this play against Bowling Green. This is the #1 concern in the first 2 games. The first half defense against the Falcons, according to Coach Franklin, a couple of hot topics of discussion: poor tackling, relying on just the headset for communication, and guys trying to do more than just their job. They gave up 24 before the break and sorted things out from there, Tom.
Well, here's the thing, you know, you get spoiled with these headsets. You're not really sure how to use them. The communication factor is key at all times. You have to communicate all times, not just coach to player, but players to players. It's got to get and they have to think of a better way maybe to get it done faster.
And when you're at home with crowd noise, you can't yell. It's one thing people don't realize about when you're at home on defense. There's crowd noise when you're trying to communicate. Hand signals are vital.
Coach had plenty to say about utilizing the new headset and iPad communication.
We were trying to rely specifically on the headset communication. And at home, that can be a little bit more challenging with the linebacker trying to verbally communicate to all 11 guys on the field. And on defense, you know, you don't typically huddle. You condense a little bit, but you don't necessarily huddle. So that created some challenges for us and allowed us some opportunities to get those things cleaned up in the second half and really moving forward.
Now, the more effectively they communicate pre-snap, the more likely they are to just handle their own responsibilities and play better team defense.
Well, based on the first 2 games this season, you know, this one, you know, they're going to this game against a team that they're clearly overmatched. You know, Kent State's overmatched. So if they can get those things kind of ironed out, this is a good time to do it. And then when you flip the offensive side with the run game, this is a top 25 run team that Penn State has now. They're getting big plays. Singleton's averaging 9 yards a game. This could be another big game for them.
One of the other things that came up, we were kind of laughing about, I missed those signal meetings. Some of the things they'd talk about, I'd be going, no, I'm not going to do that on TV, no. So, you know, there was a lot of fun in those meetings when you'd make up the signals. They have great imagination, those guys in college.
Yeah, you got to be on the same page, both defense and offense. The Nittany Lions have rushed for well over 200 yards at Morgantown, home against Bowling Green. And according to the team's QB, the key is everyone understanding the scheme.
Biggest thing is the linemen are playing super fast and physical, super decisive. I think Coach K, we have so many run schemes, but they're super detail and oriented, and we rep them so much throughout the week and walkthroughs and practices where the old linemen are just playing fast and physical. And like the biggest thing is, as long as we're all on the same page, we can never be wrong. If we're not on the same page, we're going to be wrong, and that's when things are going to happen.
Yeah, don't expect to see Katron Allen and Nick Singleton for long in this one. Singleton has 3 touchdowns, 2 rushing, 1 receiving so far this year and is averaging 9 yards per carry. Now, the Nittany Lions pole position may be a little unstable until they start Big Ten conference play. Miami of Florida jumps them in the AP rankings. They slide behind Oregon to enter weekend play at number 10.
A lot of that has to do with who you're playing. And I think at the end of the year, right now, Penn State would be the last team in the playoff at 11 because of the non-Power 4. But if it comes down to USC and Penn State at the end of the year, USC played LSU, Penn State did not. That might be one of those things that tips them out. So that's going to be important to talk about.
Got to root for West Virginia to get some wins as the year goes on. A blowout victory over the Golden Flashes, not going to impress anyone casting votes. They have some higher profile matchups coming soon that will garner some national attention. Coming up, we look at the roadmap to victory over the Golden Flashes. Our coaches break down the tape and tell us the best course of action when they host Kent State. More Nittany Game Week after this.
Roadmap to Victory is sponsored by the R&R family of companies.
Welcome back to Nittany Game Week. This week, the team occupying the visitor's sideline, Kent State, actually lost to St. Francis and trailed Tennessee 65-0 at halftime. It's natural to conclude this one is going to be a cakewalk. Coach Bradley, Coach Paterno, that's a dangerous mindset for a football team to take in any game. How do you get your team focused and ready to play a clearly inferior opponent?
Well, there's some room for improvement as we're going to see as we look at the numbers, and I think that's the mindset you take in is we've got to get better. And if you look at Penn State early on, they've gotten the big plays. They're top 25 in rushing yards, but you look at all the other statistical categories, there is definitely room for improvement. Now, the magic number that you want to look at as we switch to Kent State is 133. That's how many teams there are in the highest level of football, FBS. And if you look at those same national ranks, Kent State ranks 133rd in a number of those categories, and they obviously will try and improve upon those things. So this is going to be, from a performance standpoint, Penn State clearly is a superior team here, Tom.
They are the superior team, but one of the things you want to make sure is your mindset as you go out is you want to get better. You can get your team better. Let's go out and do what we can do to fundamentally we want to be sound fundamentally and play good football.
Yep, and if you look at Kent State, the guys that watch a quarterback, they like the short passing game. The running back is a transfer from Kansas where he was actually with Kotelnicki for a year. But let's take a look at Luke Flory on this first play. And again, we talked about how they're going to try and attack the short pass game and how they want to work in the linebackers. That was a problem against Bowling Green. Tom, here, these linebackers, communication fails, and now they get a big play.
Yeah, that's one of the things you got to make sure we're all on the same page. I look for a very short passing game this week. They will take a shot, but it will not be it'll be a 1 or 2 man shot. It will not be a bunch of guys out on routes. They'll protect the quarterbacks so they can get it out of there.
Yeah, Penn State's got to improve on the pass rush. Now let's talk about their defense players to watch. Cam Olds is one of the leading sack guys in the country, three already this year. And then the linebackers are veteran guys, and they're their leading tacklers. But let's talk about what they do, some of the things they do well defensively. They've done a good job. They're about middle of the pack nationally in the red zone. And here, Tom, from coaching, these bunch sprouts and the switch is tough to do, and they execute this really well against Pitt.
Oh, those bunch routes are just a blast. But one of the things you want to make sure you do is that communication has to be everybody's got to be on the same page because it happens so quickly.
And a late throw by this quarterback from Pitt, again, that becomes a problem. And if Allor is staring and late on some throws, could be some problems. Now let's talk about just their kind of base thing. One of the reasons you think that Penn State may be able to throw the ball is they like to keep 3 linebackers in, and you're going to be able to attack their linebackers with wide receivers, even if you're in a 3 wide set. And that's going to be something to watch for on Saturday.
Not a lot of nickel or dime this week. They're going to leave that base unit on the field.
And again, missed tackling has been a problem. Here they have Pitt's running back in the backfield for a big loss. He gets outside and becomes a big game. Now, let's talk about roadmap to victory looking ahead. Penn State finalized the last of their 4 non-conference games for the next 4 years. And if you look at it, in 2025, Nevada, FIU, Villanova, those 2 years, 25 and 26, no Power 4 teams on the schedule. Then 27 and 28, You have Syracuse comes on at home and home, but no big national games that are going to give you a bump when it comes playoff decision time when that committee's sitting there, Tom.
I think that's a mistake. I think you need to have one big game on that schedule that everybody focuses in on early.
And that takes us to the next graphic. Let's see what some other people in our conference are doing. Michigan, home and home with Oklahoma. They finished the home and home with Texas in 2027. Ohio State begins a home and home with Texas and a home and home with Alabama after that. Oregon, Oklahoma State, and Baylor, and then USC is home and home with Notre Dame. Let's look at some SEC teams and see what they're doing. And you look at that graphic, and with the SEC teams, you see Texas is taking on Ohio State and Michigan next couple of years. Alabama has Wisconsin. They have Florida State. They're going to add Notre Dame in 29 and 30. So if you look at what some of the other teams around the country are doing, they're taking a much different approach than Penn State is, and we'll see whether that bears out. Because if you're right on that bubble, you might be in, you might be out based on your non-conference schedule.
Thanks, guys. Don't get up out of your seats in the first half unless absolutely necessary. You may miss a touchdown or two this Saturday. Next week, it's the Big Ten Conference opener at home under the lights against Illinois. And the Fighting Illini's last trip to Happy Valley was hard to forget for all of the wrong reasons. Unbalanced line, a hobbled Sean Clifford, record number of overtimes, 9, so many failed two-point conversions. These were the awful details. The most upsetting part, the end result, is a 2018 setback as the 7th-ranked team in the country at the time. Penn State opened up their Big Ten schedule at Illinois last season and handled them in Champaign, 30-13. We like to stay on top of the college football trends here on Nittany Game Week. Tennessee was the last team to maul Kent State. The Volunteers announced this week they're going to charge their fans a 10% talent fee on their tickets and give the money to their players. The move is made with revenue sharing in mind. It's coming next year, and the Vols are trying to stay ahead of the competition and raise millions for their athletes. More details about this decision and revenue sharing in general on our Nittany Game Week podcast, which you can watch on our website, nittanygameweek.com. Up next, it's not easy to improve a show that already features Tom Bradley. One way to do it, invite his brother to be our impact interview, Paging Dr. Bradley. The Pittsburgh Steelers' longtime team doctor joins the program when we come back. You're watching Nittany Game Week.
Impact Interview is sponsored by the Pocono Mountains, where small-town charm meets big adventures. Book your trip today by visiting PoconoMountains.com.
Welcome back to Nittany Game Week. We have a rule on the program: the more Bradleys, the better. And with that in mind, we have got a special guest for our Impact interview. He's the Pittsburgh Steelers team doctor for the last 30-plus years, Dr. Jim Bradley, and a captain on the Nittany Lions football team. So just great perspective from Dr. Bradley. Thanks for joining us. And after college, you headed off to med school and a career in medicine. Your path took you into orthopedics. That decision has led to a life of great impact in the sports world. How has your career impacted the Pittsburgh Steelers and the NFL beyond that?
Yeah, so this is coming up on 34 years with the Steelers, almost 700 games on the sidelines. There's 25 years I was on the injury and safety panel for the NFL. 15 years I was the chair of the research for the NFL, which allowed research, and it was a very good job. I was lucky enough to be the president of 3 major societies: the NFL Physician Society, the American Orthopedic Society of Sports Medicine, and the president of Eruditus, which is an exclusive group of sports medicine surgeons from around the world. Primarily, I think the focus on our research is what's helped the most with research in the NFL and really of all our athletes. So we've kind of changed the paradigm because we have a lot of numbers on how we treat injuries, especially slap tears and throwers, hamstring avulsions off the pelvis in football players and really all athletes. We have a big focus on the throwing shoulder, primarily the posterior labrum of the shoulder. So I think our research is really what's got us, and helped a lot of people.
Well, Jim, you were the first of 3 brothers to play at Penn State. You came to Penn State early on before Penn State's program had been established as really kind of the national program we came to know. So how much did being part of a family atmosphere mean to you and to your 2 brothers that followed you to Penn State?
Well, I wasn't going to go to Penn State. I had a scholarship to play point guard for Virginia, but we went up for a visit, and it was your mom and dad. They took my parents and took me into your house and showed them what the family looked like. And, on the way back, there was no doubt where I was going to school. My dad told me to go to school. You're going to Penn State Because, your dad said, look, this guy's got a scholarship for 4 years. He gets hurt. He still's got a scholarship. He goes to study hall. And as soon as my dad heard study hall, that's what happened.
There remains a lot of talk about player safety with some rules changes in the college game that some fans may not like. Can you tell our viewers and fans, and perhaps even parents of young players, how these rules have helped make the game safer?
Yeah, the primary rule, first of all, let's go back. There's an injury and safety panel. At the end of every year, we look at the injuries across the NFL. What's your high? What's your low? Do we have to do something about this? Do we have to do something about that? I did it for over 25 years. And the concussion thing is a really big issue. And the league is really, we have a very strict protocols for concussions now. We wear those Guardian caps. They're going to ban that. They changed the kickoff. They're going to ban the hip drop tackles. And this injury surveillance is very important because every year we get our numbers and we're graded against every team in the NFL. And it's a trickle down effect. What we do happens and then it goes to the colleges and it's going to go to the high schools and down. So the parents I would say to the parents that football has never been safer.
As part of your time with the Steelers, you formed a unique relationship with Dan Rooney, even talking about some of the superstitions with that. What was life like being around one of the true giants of the game?
Yeah, he, first of all, if I'm half the man that he is, I'm a success. I had dinner with him for 26 years on the road all the time, and he complained that if I didn't show up for dinner that I was forming a doctors union in the NFL. But this is all you need to know about Dan Rooney. When he interviewed me the first time, which I didn't think was for the job, he just was interviewing me. We talked for 55 minutes. We talked about current events. We talked about religion. We talked about the press. We talked about the media. I said, media, you've got PR people. They do that. And then he said to me, Jim, do you want to take care of my team? And I mean, of course, my mouth drops. And I said, well, do I have to sign anything? He says, no, you shake my hand. I shook his hand. I walked out of the room. And my trainer said to me, are you my new blanking orthopedic surgeon? And I said, I don't know. He shook my hand. And the trainer said, we called him the plumber. He said, listen, he shook my hand 27 years ago. And then once I did take the job, he came up to me and he said, Doc, he wouldn't let me call him Mr. Rooney either. It was always Dan. He said, Doc, if anybody ever interferes with you, taking care of my players, I want to know his name. And then I knew he had my back, and he was just a great man. And he did so many things behind the scenes for everybody. It was unbelievable. But I got to watch it at these dinners.
I know for me, growing up in Johnstown, what it was like, and kind of want to know what it was like for you. That it's a foundation that's remained with me forever. And I'd like to know, what it meant to you.
Well, listen, Johnstown. I can sum it up this way, one of the best ways. In Johnstown, if I shake your hand and say, you need anything, I'm going to do something for you, I mean, I'm going to help you. But there are other places in the country, they shake your hand and they're looking at you and going, what can you do for me? Not in Johnstown. This is a working class town. We had 2 steel mills. We had, coal mines. It was basically a town with a great work ethic that loves sports. My father and mother instilled in Tom and I this work ethic. So, I can't not work. It's impossible. And it was all about growing up. And my father was tough on us, but he was fair, and my mother loved us to death.
Well, we promised Tom we wouldn't ask his older brother too many stories about him growing up. What a wealth of knowledge. Could have talked with Dr. Bradley for hours. You can see the entire conversation on our website, NittanyGameWeek.com. Still to come, our scrap metal winner. This guy's always doing good things, even during a bye week. Tom explains why this week's winner doesn't even need to take the field to be honored. We're heading into the final minutes on Nittany Game Week.
The Nittany Game Week Depth Chart is brought to you by Burke & Bradley Orthopedics. Located in Pittsburgh, Burke & Bradley Orthopedics is a comprehensive sports medicine practice, providing patients with the most current and innovative approaches in diagnosis and treatment. Scrap Metal is sponsored by the We Are In, voted #1 game day restaurant in Center County. Follow us on Facebook and visit thewearein.com or call for dinner or room reservations.
All right, time for our scrap metal. And this week's recipient, Tom, doesn't need to play a game to know he's doing good work.
Yes, the Scrap Metal Award, the most prestigious award next to the Heisman Trophy given annually. But it goes this week to senior center and captain Nick Dawkins. He's this week's winner. Nick was named to the All-State Good Works team, which honors student athletes that are inspired to serve others and make a positive impact on society. Number 53 is in the middle of every offensive play, and when he's not leading on the field, he can be found at events like Lift for Life, making a difference in the community around him. Nick founded the Dawkins Family Foundation to champion academic and athletic excellence for young students. Congratulations to Nick on being named to the Good Works team. He is one of just 22 players recognized across the country. You can vote for him as he competes for the All-State Warfield Trophy on our website, NittanyGameWeek.com.
All right, well done, Nick. Now it's time for our Nittany Trivia with our quizmaster, Jay Paterno.
Well, last week the question was, besides water, what other drink did the 70s and 80s Penn State players get during hydration breaks? The answer was 10-ounce bottles of Coca-Cola in the glass bottles. Our winner, Bob Capretto, a former captain of the 1960s Penn State team, probably cheated knowing that one, but he's our winner from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Now let's turn to this week's question. This week's question, we talked about non-conference games during the roadmap to victory. In 14 seasons from 1979 to 92, Penn State played home-and-home games against teams like USC, Alabama, Notre Dame, Texas A&M, Texas, and Nebraska, with 12 straight games against Notre Dame. In that 12-game stretch, what was Penn State's record against Notre Dame? You can go to NittanyGameWeek.com and submit your answer.
Right, and it's okay if it's a Fighting Irish fan that goes there and gives us the answer too. Nittany Game Week is much more than a television show. Make sure you check out our depth chart at NittanyGameWeek.com. The depth chart, a collection of businesses that support the show, provide our viewers with places to eat, travel, and shop, or professional services owned and operated by people with a special connection to Penn State. Let's see, vote for Nick Dawkins. Answer the trivia question. Check out the depth chart. One location for all this traffic, and you won't get jammed up. NittanyGameWeek.com. Bunch of web-exclusive content on the site, including our Nittany Game Week podcast. And another thing you can do online, submit your pride pick. It may just turn up on the show. Make sure to show us your spirit. For Jay and Tom, I'm Todd. Thanks so much for watching Nittany Game Week. We'll see you next time.